Hello, in this video I will show you how to calculate some summary statistics or descriptive statistics in Google Sheets. I have a file here that lists the amount of money spent per student by all of the schools in the state of Georgia. So these are real data, and let's say that I want to get some summary information about these amounts of money, things like, for instance, the average amount spent or the median value, the minimum and maximum value, and the variation in the data. So to do that, I prefer to create another sheet like I have here for summary statistics. I mentioned before that I prefer not to calculate summary statistics in the same sheet where I have the data just to avoid errors. So I'm going to keep them separate and create the information that I need in a separate sheet. And I already created a template here for the summary statistics. And the first thing that I want is the number of values that I'm going to use, right? How many schools report these amount. So to do that, I can use the count function. So I'm typing here equal and then count. And remember that the function count counts only the numerical values. If you want to count any kind of information, you're going to have to use count A. In this case, I'm working with numerical values, so the function count is appropriate. And I'm going to go back to the data sheet and select column F. Because count is only going to count the numerical values, it's going to exclude the column name anyway, so I don't have to do anything about that. I'm just going to close the parenthesis and hit enter. And now I have 2,257 values. I'm wondering if this number is the same as the number of schools that I have in my data set. So I'm going to go back to my data and look at the end of it and notice that I have more schools. I actually have 2,258 schools, but there is one missing value. Again, this is real data. I didn't delete this value. It's just the way it is. So if your n is lower than your number of observations, that means you must have some missing value somewhere. And there's lots of things that you can do with missing values. You can just exclude them like it happened here, or there are some imputation procedures that can be used, but this is not the focus of this video. So for now, I just need to know that I'm using 2,257 values. Now, another important statistic that I need is the mean value. So the way to calculate a mean is to use the average function. So I just have to start typing and then I'm getting suggestions. Again, I'm having to go back to the original sheet where I have the data, select the column that lists the amount. In this case, remember that the first row is actually award, so this cannot be used for calculation. So I want the calculation to start in the second row, right? That's where I have the actual numerical values, and then close and then go all the way down. I'm going to close the parenthesis, and now I'm getting the average amount spent by the schools in Georgia. Now, the average, as some of you may know, can be very much influenced by outliers, by schools that have some extreme values, like extremely high or extremely low. So another measure that shows a central tendency, or where most values are located, is the median. And the median is not as much influenced by outliers. It represents the middle point of a distribution. And because I have the word median typed here, Google Sheets is going to give you suggestions and recognize what you're going to try to calculate. And it already suggests the function median, which I am going to use, but notice that it gives you the incorrect range. It actually selects the range above it, which is not what I need. I need to change this range and then go back to the data sheet and select the column F. Again, I want to start in the second row, so I'm going to indicate that and then hit enter. Notice that the median is much lower than the mean. That tells me that there are some schools that spend an extremely higher amount of money than most of the other schools. So there are some outliers at the higher end of this distribution. And so that makes me want to know what that maximum value is. So to do that, I can just uh, calculate it using the max function. Again, I am going to change the range that is suggested here and go to the data sheet and select the column F, starting at the second row and going all the way down, and then hit enter. So notice that the maximum value here is much higher than the median and also the mean. So there are some outliers at the higher end. We may also want to know the minimum amount of money that schools are spending. So to do that, I can use the minimum, the min function. So again, I'm going to have to specify the correct data range, which is my column F, starting at the second row, and hit enter. And I can see that the minimum amount of value is 0. There actually are some institutions where the amount of money spent per student is 0. Now, some other information that is helpful and that shows how spread the data are the standard deviation and variance. The standard deviation is also sometimes defined as the average distance from the mean. So the standard deviation can be calculated using the standard deviation function. Again, I have to change the range to the correct range of data that I want to use. Again, I want to start in the second row, going all the way down. And now I'm getting the standard deviation. The variance is very similar. It's actually the square of the standard deviation and can be obtained using the variance function. For this one, it doesn't suggest a range, but I can go and select it myself and again specify that I want to start at the second row, going all the way down, and hit enter. Now the range is actually very easy to understand and to calculate. It shows the difference between the maximum and the minimum value. Some of these functions you can calculate using, some of these values you can calculate using functions, but you can also specify your own formula. So for the range, this will be very easy to do. The range would be actually the difference between the maximum value and the minimum value, which is 0. Here is very easy to check because the minimum value is 0, so the range would actually be equal to the maximum value, but when it's not, it's just going to be the difference. So this is how you can calculate a set of summary statistics that show the central tendency of the data, which means where most of the values are located. And these measures of central tendency are the mean and the median. They also measure the spread of the data, and the measures of spread are the minimum and maximum values, the standard deviation, the variance, and the range. Now, of course, you can obtain these statistics very easily using other statistical software, which is the click of a button. But the nice thing about using Google Sheets is that these are not just a one-time snapshot. They are actually updated as you make changes in the data. For instance, if I go back to the data and let's say that, oh, I made a mistake here and I need to update this value. Let's say I'm going to add zeros here and then hit enter. going back to my summary statistics, these values are going to look a little bit different. So, and of course, I don't want to do that because this is real data. I just want to keep it as it is. But maybe because I selected the entire range going all the way down, I can add new data and my values will be updated automatically. I would not have to calculate them again. For instance, let's say that maybe in next quarter I am going to add some new values, and just to demonstrate, I'm going to copy and paste these values here. Again, if I look at my summary statistics, I can see that these values are automatically updated. My total number of values have changed and all these other statistics have changed.